We're cooking deer heart today, and there's a lot of information that we gave in part one. So if you haven't watched part one yet, I encourage you to watch that and then come back and watch part two because we had breakfast before and it was really, really good. And now we're gonna have lunch. And what we're gonna do today is stir fry. Okay, so the next way to do this is to cut it into thin strips, okay? And it's really not hard to do. You can take even some of those that you weren't able to slice out very well because they're too small. And you can cut those into those little tiny strips, like such. And if it's too wide, you can even cut it in half, like some of these I did in quarters. This one, yep. So I put my deer heart in a bowl, so when I season it, it's not quite messy all over the counter. So now we're gonna get started with that. You can stick with the seasonings that you used last time, but if you want to try something different, I have some different choices for you. So one of the things I like to add to my steak is Montreal steak seasoning. Don't go crazy with this stuff. You can over season it with this. So just a nice light sprinkle. Another thing that I like to use, since I'm not using Lowry seasoned salt this time, I'm going to sprinkle just a dash of celery salt on it. You don't want to use much. Deer doesn't need a lot of salt, and neither do you. So just really, really lightly on the celery salt, and I think you'll like what it can do. Garlic powder. This is a must. You gotta have garlic powder on it. No ifs, ands, or buts, don't argue. This is McCormick's Meat Tenderizer. It's getting a little harder to find this in shopping centers and grocery stores, but if you can't find it, this is the brand and the type to buy. Looky, that one. There are other meat tenderizers in the store. Don't buy them, they're gross. Okay, why use this? Well, deer heart is already pretty tender, so it's not the tenderizing aspect that you are worrying about, it's more the flavor of this stuff. This is the seasoned meat tenderizer, so I just like the flavor of it, it's good. So, this. You might also add just a little sprinkle of onion powder. Again, little bit, but experiment with the flavors and see what you like. One thing never to use, you shouldn't even buy it, is garlic salt. Once you've done that, coat all the sides with your lusciousness. That way it's completely seasoned all the way through. But you could also do at this point a little black pepper. And there's other things you can add too. You can add cayenne if you want, or you can put soy sauce in this. You can put teriyaki in this. There's a lot of stuff you can do with this. It's all up to what you want. For this, we're using a wok. If you don't have a wok, I highly recommend you getting one. You don't have to have an expensive one, but these are just really, really nice to cook in. We're going to go back to the grapeseed oil because it tolerates a very high smoke point. It'll do high heat, whereas other oils may not handle the heat quite as well. You only need to use a couple tablespoons in there because we're just going to be browning that deer heart that we've already sliced up. When it starts to smoke, you know your pan's ready. You know that oil is hot. So here we go. We've got everything ready. Now, when you toss your meat in, be careful because you don't want to splash it. Kind of take it up on the side and then let it, sticky sucker, and then let it kind of go down in the center. You don't want to splash that oil on yourself. Now, high heat means lower cooking times. It's going to sear really quick on this side because it's high heat. Oh my gosh, that smells so good. Oh man. So we're going to let it sit here for just a little bit, and then we're going to start to flip it. Let it get good and seared. On that high heat, it's not going to take very long, so now we're going to start flipping it. Again, higher heat, shorter cooking times. It doesn't work for everything. Sometimes you got to have a slower cooking time for some meats, but if you like your meat seared on the outside and juicy and medium rare on the inside, a high cooking heat is not a bad way to go. Now, if this were a whole steak and I hadn't chopped it up into smaller pieces, you may not want to cook on a high heat. Lower that down a little bit, allow your cooking time to be a little bit longer so the inside cooks to your liking, but still sears the outside. We're getting there. See how we're doing. Yep, that's about ready. Okay. Now, mise en place, right? Everything in its place. So I've pre-prepared my vegetables. I've got carrots and Brussels sprouts and broccoli slaw and kale. There's a bunch of really good stuff in here. So, we'll lay it right on top of the meat. And then we'll flip the meat on top of it so it can cook. This is why I love using the wok. All right, now you got to remember that you've seasoned the meat, but you haven't seasoned anything else, and you've seared the seasoning into the meat. So now we need to season the entire thing. We'll let it cook a little bit here. So we're going to add some more pepper. We're going to add, this is squeezed garlic. My wife likes this type. I prefer it fresh, but this is actually not too bad. So we're going to throw in some of that. I like a lot of garlic. That's no lie. It's something that you have to refrigerate. In this case, because it's stir fry, I like a little heat. So I'm going to toss in just a little red pepper, some cayenne pepper. Pop, pop, pop. Doesn't take much. There we go. That's plenty. And we're going to stir fry that a little bit. Get it spread around. Butter. Boom. Ha-ha. Let that do its thing. And last but not least, a little kikkoman, man. That'll do. Oh my gosh. You can smell this. Turn off your heat. Plate it up. Oh boy. It may look like all I do is eat and wear the same stuff, but there's a deer in my backyard right now. There's two of them. There's one standing behind that big tree right there. There's another one along the fence over there. That one's a nice big doe. Yeah, it's wet out there, guys. I think they smelled my yummalicious home cooking. Seriously, guys. Deer heart stir fry. Wow. Make you appreciate the deer just a little bit more. This is really good. Oh my gosh. Oh, wow.